Live from Venture X Studios, it's JP, Kathy, and the crew.
And welcome to JP, Kathy, and the crew. I hope you are having a wonderful, wonderful day, a blessed day, a beautiful day, if you will. Midweek here, almost through the week. Lots to talk about today. We're going to go ahead and start the show off with our very own Dr. Be Good, Ask Dr. Be Good of the Ask Dr. Be Good show. And then we've got some other things to talk about. Del Rio citizens themselves speak out about the Border Patrol. So what are their thoughts on media coverage? What are their thoughts on the Border Control that are the Border Patrol members who are in their town right now? Lots to talk about. R. Kelly, we've got a verdict. It seems like, has that thing been going on forever? Anyways, I want to talk about that, get your thoughts on that. We are trying to get Senator Angela Paxton, who is in special session in Austin, on the show today. Depending on her meeting schedule, she's going to try to hop on here at the end of the show. So if not, she'll be on next week with an update regarding redistricting and some of the things going on in Austin this special session. And somebody who knows about Austin and the special session and education and knows about all the different ISDs around town, Dr. Good, how are you this morning? Oh, we don't have audio on her. Hold on 1 second, Dr. Good. We don't have audio on. There you are. Now we can hear you. Excellent. How are you this morning?
So, beautiful sunrise this morning. It reminded me of being at the lake.
Oh,
so
I love it.
Whoa.
Well, and happy anniversary. I'm thinking about your lake pictures and some pictures that I saw from last night. 42 years for you and your lovely husband, Tom?
That's right, 42.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's hard to believe. I know, right?
Y'all got married in junior high.
Well, we were 21 and 23. So, wow. I tell people I sort of fudged a little bit when I was a teacher. I used to tell my students and my own kids, I said, marry late, have kids late, get to know yourself. Now I'm glad I married early and had kids early so that I can enjoy the grandkids. So I'm not sure about that advice. But anyway, speaking about unbelievable things, you've heard schools, and over time we've heard that we really should get rid of in-house and out-of-school suspensions, right?
Yes, and if you'll describe that, because to those of us who are educators or anybody who has gone through in-school suspension back in the day, tell us what that means, what's the difference, because when you sent me this story, I was like, what, am I reading that right?
So, when a kid misbehaved, let's say that had a bad day, called the teacher a bad word, and didn't immediately apologize. Because a lot of teachers, if you apologize and say, gosh, I'm having a bad day, I apologize, it just slipped out. Some teachers will overlook that, but others won't.
Right.
So those teachers that don't overlook that, or maybe it's not the first time, right? It's the third time.
Yes.
And so we send them to in-house suspension for a day to get fixed, right? Actually, it's just to have a consequence, right? That's what the teachers want, is a consequence for behavior.
Yes.
And then if that child continues with poor behavior, then it might lead to an out-of-school suspension. Maybe they've had a couple of in-school suspensions, they've had meetings with the parents, and so the child then is in a bullying situation or gets in a fight, and the school decides that the child needs a 3-day suspension.
Right.
And so those are very normal parts of school that have been going on for generations.
Right.
Now, there's been a lot of talk in the last 20 years, though, around restorative practice and social justice and how we need to have a different type of discipline system because, frankly, for a lot of our kids, that in-house and out-of-school suspension is a vacation. It is not a place where they take their behavior seriously and try to think about how they're going to do better. And so,
you hear nowadays about, so somebody's parents work, even if your parents don't work in an office and because of the pandemic, they're working from home now, they're usually isolated in another part of the house. So what is the kid doing? The kid's sleeping in, grabbing some donuts at 10 o'clock in the morning and gaming all day. That's not a rough life, you know?
That's right. That's right. So, from a teacher standpoint, at least he's not in my hair for these 3
Yes,
days.
right.
And so that's why I like out of school suspensions, because at least it gives me a vacation from that behavior of that kid for 3 days.
Right.
But really, it's not an effective behavior most times. And so there have been lots of different techniques. You've heard me talk about restorative practice before. We've been doing
love
it
restorative practice. Love it, love it, love it.
And really, restorative practice is, if I can read the definition, restorative practice is a social science that studies how to improve and repair relationships between people and communities. And that sounds good. It is good, and it works. But here's what I'll tell you. Having done it for 7 years in our district, it takes a lot of training.
Yes.
It takes time. And did I mention training?
Yeah. And did I mention training again? Well, you can't just throw anybody in there. I mean, it's one. I remember it was usually like somebody who had a counselor's background as well as a certified teacher, or somebody who was like the super disciplined coach who knew how to handle potentially volatile physical situations, emotional breakdowns. It's not like, just go in there and you can read your book and you can do a crossword puzzle and it's all good. That's not how it is.
Right. So in DISD last year, there was a principal who saw that most of the kids being sent to in-house and out-of-school suspension were Black or brown. Okay. And that bothered him. He is an African-American principal, and he wanted to come up with an alternative solution. So he and his assistant principal came up with this idea of a reset center, a center where the kids can be sent to reset their brains, right? And he has a protocol in there. The chairs are in a circle. Somebody in there, an adult, is trained to, first of all, handle the volatile child, because it is not unusual for a child to be very angry when they come into the reset center, as they would in in-house suspension, right? They don't feel it's fair. They got caught fighting or whatever caused the anger. They're still angry. And so he has mindfulness tools and resources, and I hate to say games in there, but a way of cooling down the brain. I remember going to Dr. Ruby Payne. You may have heard of her, very, very famous school now trainer. And she would tell us that when you get a very angry, especially angry male in your office, you give them a tennis ball and you just ask them to bounce the tennis ball for a few minutes. Just bounce the tennis ball.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay.
And then after bouncing the ball for 5 minutes and just focusing on that and calming oneself down, then usually the assistant principal would then say, tell me your story. But what we usually do in schools is to bring that angry kid in and say, what happened? Tell me what happened.
Right.
And so that kid's brain it's just everywhere, right? It can't focus on the story. And so we do know that there are better practices around to direct that anger and so forth. So this principal had a lot of luck with the students that he had coming in. He would bring them in the reset circle. They would use mindfulness tools. They would talk, do social emotional strategies, and let the child get the story out. And again, you've heard me talk, and I've done podcasts on the void that many of our kids come with. 75% of the African American population, the kids are born into single parent homes. And when dad is missing, that's a void. And so they fill it with other things, sometimes not positive things. So he had so much good luck with it that Dallas ISD, who had already been toying with the idea of doing away with in-house and out-of-school suspension, went ahead and pulled the lever on that and said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to put reset centers into our middle school and high schools. And so they've done that, and it's a little too early to really get a clear picture, but I did reach out to one of the master teachers that I've used on the podcast before.
Right.
She's at a middle school, and she says it's a hot mess.
It's just not
Teachers
working
hate it.
out.
The kids, well, what happened was the kids heard no more in-house suspension, no more out-of-school suspension, and they are off the chain. They are
taking advantage of it.
Yeah, unfortunately, she said that she's never heard kids, cussing out teachers so much, getting up and walking around, walking to school. And again, we want this to work. Please know that I'm going to tell you that it can work, but it needs to be brought in with training,
yes,
and ongoing training. And so there's not been time to have a whole lot of training to help teachers manage this kind of behavior.
Well, and especially now, Dr. Good, think about, you're retired superintendent now, but when you were superintendent, that's when the pandemic started. And there's been so much chaos. There is so much that you have to assimilate if you're a student, if you're a parent, if you're a teacher, if you're admin, whatever the case may be. A program like this, where I can see on the merits and if you've got the right people in place and you've got the right training, I think it's one of those things you phase in. You tell kids, starting the 20 whatever school year, this is going to be the option. Here is going to be, and I would even have a student come in with and somebody who's going to be in this leadership role and walk through, do like an hour-long assembly where the kids have to be quiet as all get out and say, this is what you'll be doing on a regular basis. Here's how you're going to be acclimated back into the classroom. So they see, wait a second, maybe I shouldn't call the teacher the B word today, because then I'm going to have to go through all this kind of counseling kind of stuff, and everybody's going to be checking into my head and into my home life, and what's that all about? That's none of their business. Maybe I won't take advantage of this, because kids are coming back. What's the thing we talked about last week? I keep forgetting what it's called, where they go into the bathroom, and I know it's happened in schools around here. When they rip stuff off, famous on TikTok. Yeah. And so they're destroying bathrooms. They're taking like soap dispensers and paper towel dispensers, putting them in their backpacks, waving, making a viral TikTok video. Kids are coming back to school different. They just are.
Well, yeah, that's when one thinks of the big picture, the fact that the year before last year, they were home. They were home the second semester. Last year, half of them were home. So a lot of kids were home for a year and a half. And now they're back. They're especially if they were middle school and high school, where they were most impacted socially and emotionally.
Right.
It's a mess. It is a hot mess. And so let me also say that our teachers then had their own issues. And so it's like a perfect storm, right?
Right.
We have kids who haven't been in school a while. We have teachers who wanted to come back to school, but were worried about COVID and had all those anxieties. Many decided not to come back to school. Matter of fact, on my show Sunday, we'll be talking about not only this, but about the impact it's having on teacher retention. And so,
I can't wait to hear about that. Yeah, I'm very anxious to hear. I'm assuming on Sunday you'll have numbers and statistics and be talking real life. Yeah. Here's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, we already have articles coming in about really they're having to poach from central office to cover classes because districts, especially your bigger districts with your bigger vacancies, they just they can't find they can't find enough teachers. You have teachers quitting left and right. And this is outside of Dallas, not the Reset Center issue, but my master teacher that I talked to said she's got teachers who already talking about quitting because it's just such a hostile environment as far as what's created. And this is very poor timing as far as, making sure that our teachers, feel like they're being heard and understood, right? Yeah. So goodness gracious, we need to do a lot more for our teachers and for our kids. And a lot of that involves sitting down and talking together and figuring this out without making it a hammer, right? Without saying this is what we're going to do. And I'm wondering how many teachers were involved in the decision to do away with in-house and out-of-school suspension.
That's funny. When you sent the text and we were doing pre-production, questions. We always, JP and I always like to know ahead of time what you're going to talk about. We're intrigued, and because we're both still in the world of education, so to speak, that we always were wondering what you're talking about next. But the first thing I thought was, and again, former teacher, so I think of this because we had a zero. It was big. The buzzwords back in the early '90s when I taught through the late '90s, zero tolerance. I know you've heard zero tolerance a bajillion times in your career. Well, I thought right away when you first said what you were talking about, I thought, how many teachers were consulted on this? I just thought of all the teachers who got this memo and went, "You're kidding me. Why didn't somebody ask me?"
Except maybe it had a little word in front of it.
Quite possibly, if they were in their office away from students' ears.
Yeah, matter of fact, it's funny you should say the teacher I was talking to said one of her, they have 3 counselors at their school.
Right.
They had one vacancy. One counselor just quit because it's just gotten so out of hand that they just couldn't handle it all. And so, it just, and yet we're still testing kids. We're still expecting schools to do, well by kids. And many schools now with 90% attendance, so they're losing money. And the message coming out of Austin, TEA, Texas Education Agency, is not necessarily as sympathetic as it was a year or two ago. And so we're in our own special crisis year here, and I think that needs to be understood. We're not over COVID by any means.
No.
Recovery, our teachers recovering from it, our kids recovering, our parents recovering, and our schools recovering. We're just we're at a different stage of COVID recovery, and it's still not a pretty stage.
Right. There are so many unknowns you're dealing with. And you talk about this on your show on a weekly basis. It's interesting. Like we have Dr. Clothier on every, the beginning of every week. And, and the pre-production meetings with him are now, well, we're going to be talking this aspect of COVID or, whatever the case is. He tries to throw in something else like flu season or how to get rid of type 2 diabetes or different things like this. But the reality is, until we learn to live with COVID, because it's around to stay. I know everybody's, there's folks out there who are saying, oh, if everybody gets vaccinated, we'll never see COVID again. COVID's like the flu. To a large degree, we're going to have to learn how to deal with it. I've got a dear friend of mine who she's got COVID for the second time around, and she thought she had built her immunity up, and this is now my third friend. 2 of them were vaccinated, but my third friend with COVID for the second time.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, again, we don't know what's around the corner with COVID. We've got to learn to live with it in the workplace, in the school place, especially school with kids, because you're talking the health of our kids and they are our most important resource. That's where we're really having to seriously learn how to deal with COVID. And we're still in that process. Anybody who says, oh, we've got this, no, you don't. Then, next week, 20 of your kids are out or 10 of your teachers are out. You just don't know. And I guess any kind of we've already had major drastic changes because of the pandemic. Any other major drastic changes, especially in behavior, especially when you have kids dealing with all these unknowns, and maybe you've got a kid at home who's, they're about to be, lose their home or about to be evicted or about to foreclose on their home. Or maybe they've lost one of their parents or somebody close to them, a grandparent or something, to COVID. These are real life problems. So why go and make sweeping changes without, I don't know, I guess maybe the lack of a longer transitioning period is what tells me maybe folks shouldn't jump on something like this so quickly. I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at all options. I don't know. What do you think about that length of a transition period? So you don't have the kids taking advantage of it.
Having been in the school and having been principal several times, I will tell you that adults are hard nuts to crack when it comes to getting them to change their behavior enough to have an impact on student behavior.
Right.
And I've written articles about that. 100% of kid issues are caused by some adult somewhere in their life.
Yep, that's so true.
So, needing to have the adults slow down and think it through and say, how can we implement something as radical? Because that is radical. When you tell a 154,000 student school system with 20,000 teachers that there's no more in-house and out-of-school suspension, and that you're going to replace it with a reset center that a principal started the spring semester of last year, that's hard. That's a hard sell, right? Without lots and lots of resources and training and thought around it, right? And I don't know that there was time to do that. At least I'm not getting the impression that there was time to do that. And so now, starting with your toughest group, which is, of course, your middle school group and high school group. Yeah. So I'll do a little bit more research, because I'm wondering then if they're not allowing that in elementary, for example. Yes, the kids are smaller, but they can be quite volatile as well.
Those
in fifth grade. So let me do a little research, and by the time I do the show, maybe I'll have even more to say maybe what they could have done differently.
Yeah, I would definitely. I'd be interested in that. I know you've got parents, teachers. I mean, this is a big thing to tackle. I would love to hear numbers for elementary schools. And again, I just think when you're a teacher, you need every single arrow in your quiver that there is possible. And if you're going to have to alternate and switch one of those out, boy, you better really have a good plan, and it already better be in place and solid. You don't want kids to take advantage of it, and you know this. The majority of the kids who go to school are great, but there are some kids who are always trying to outsmart the system. How can I get away with this? How can I get away with that? And so, what do you do if one of your tools has changed drastically? So, lots of big questions. So when can people catch you on the JPK Broadcasting Network?
8 o'clock Sundays. The rebroadcast is on 6 o'clock on Thursdays, in case you missed it. But hopefully we'll see you. And it's a new 30-minute show.
Yes.
If I slow JP down, we're supposed to do that wellness show. But
I can't wait for that. I know he's a traveling man right now. Well, you're traveling with him some, so his schedule is crazy.
We're going to McAllen, matter of fact, this week. Last week we were in Houston. This week we're going to South Texas. So, yes.
Love it.
Ellos necesitan alguien que habla español.
There you go. What she just said. Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Good. Have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much. Good information. It's good to have this and be proactive on it, especially if you've got a kid who's had situations with suspensions, in school, out of school, whatever the case may be. This is a drastic change, so I'm really anxious to hear what all comes down after this. Let's talk about, oh my goodness gracious, we've got so much to talk about. Let's go ahead and talk about the R. Kelly verdict. How long, can somebody help me with this? How long has this been going on? R. Kelly has been, and y'all know he's the I Believe I Can Fly, I'll Spare You From My Singing this morning. And by the way, happy National Coffee Day. Okay, and this is, now my son, I think most of y'all know from the crew that my son is working at a boba tea place, started this summer and is working through the school year. And so the nights he works until close, he'll be very nice. If mom's got a show the next morning, he brings me an unsweet green tea. So I don't have coffee this morning. I did have a sip of coffee super early this morning. Oh, goodness, probably about 3 hours ago at this point. Had a sip of some coffee. So I have had my coffee for National Coffee Day. But anyways, happy National Coffee Day. And then I'm wondering, happy National Coffee Day, is that just for a good old-fashioned cup of regular black coffee with nothing in it? Or does it extend to like the 9,000 coffee drinks that are out there and available? I'd be anxious to hear about that. Anyways, happy National Coffee Day. I know most of y'all start off the day with a good cup of joe. And where did that saying come from? I'm late to the coffee drinking scene. I've always loved the smell of coffee. but then I did not start drinking coffee in the morning until our dear friend JP hooked me up and said, "Hey, you want to come do a radio show with me at 6 a.m. in the morning in Irving?" And I was like, "Okay, why not?" I learned to drink coffee very quickly then. So anyways, happy National Coffee Day, and just go out there, have a cup of decaf if you can't do the caffeine, and enjoy. Okay, so I want to talk about the Texas Border Patrol because came across earlier today a really interesting article. Actually, a member of the crew had sent this to me because they knew that we were talking about this, and this was an area of concern for us here on the show. The Border Patrol on mounted horses on the ones who ride the horses on the border. So we want to talk about that because these are actually the citizens of Del Rio. So people who live, work, raise their families there, talking about the Border Patrol. And anyway, so we're going to talk about that in a little while. But big news yesterday. R. Kelly was found guilty of racketeering and sex crimes, but his representative, Danny Davis, does not think he's beyond redemption. And he goes on to say the 54-year-old I Believe I Can Fly singer, like I said, I've got the song going in my head now on a loop, but I will spare you that this morning. The singer was found guilty on Monday of all 9 counts in his racketeering and sex trafficking case. He faces 10 years to life in prison. Thoughts on the verdict? Or on the sentencing? I would imagine they're going to go closer to the life sentence versus the 10 years. That's just my guess on that. And he's 54 already, so I think he's looking at. My guess would be the sentencing phase will be fairly harsh, as it should be. He was found guilty on every single count. The guilty verdict, immediately sparked questions about the future of Kelly's celebrated body of work and reignited debates over whether art and artist can be separated from the public. And this is interesting because there's a number of artists out there. I'm thinking of one in particular. I'm thinking of Michael Jackson. He came to mind because of this phenomenal music, and then this incredible body of work. But then once people started hearing the accusations of Jesus juice and possible molestation, and Neverland is that the name of his place, I think. And then went on to die, basically getting the the stuff that they give you when they put you to sleep for surgery. So have you been able to separate that in that, because that's been something for years that we've heard of and dealt with, and now they look at, can his music, and I mean, let's give credit where credit is due. Beautiful singing voice, just amazing singing voice. That the song that they mentioned, I Believe I Can Fly, is a beautiful song. But can you separate that from the artist when the artist had all these things that were truly going on? And once they're found guilty, which obviously he was found guilty, how does that work? So for his part, Davis believes that there could be a future for the star in Chicago, and he's a Democrat out of Illinois. This guy Davis is. He said, as an artist, one who's gifted, I think he'll be welcomed back into Chicago as a person who can be redeemed, the politician told TMZ. I'm a big believer in what is called second chances. When he then made a note of the Second Chance Act, which he championed in 2007. The act helps to provide opportunities for jobs, housing, and more for former inmates. It really will all depend upon him, Davis said. He said when asked what he'd tell Kelly if the opportunity presented itself, try and find peace with the maker and peace with himself and reconcile with the universe for the acts that he may have committed. Well, they're saying he committed them now, so not may have committed. He has been found guilty of this. Kelly was found guilty on 1 count of racketeering, including 14 underlying acts of sexual exploitation of a child kidnapping, bribery, and sex trafficking charges. Charges went back more than 2 decades. Kelly was also charged with 8 violations of the Mann Act, which makes it illegal to transport anyone across state lines for any, and I'm quoting this, immoral purpose, and that's in the Mann Act. He is denied any wrongdoing. He will be sentenced on Wednesday, May 4th of 2022 and faces a mandatory minimum sentence of 10 years in prison, but could receive up to a life sentence. Let's kind of dissect this a little bit. My prediction would be, if I were a betting person, I would say I bet he's going to get the book thrown at him when it comes to sentencing. I just think so. You look at, I mean, it's not an isolated instance. It's multiple instances, and within those multiple instances, some of those included all of the lists that I just read with each of those people. So, there was, bringing somebody across state lines. There's, all of the different components of that. So it's, this is not a slap on the hand. And where this particular individual who is a representative out of the Chicago, Illinois area. It sounds like, I know he's from Illinois. I know he's a representative from there. He is saying that, and I'd love to hear what the crew has to say. 26 years in law enforcement, working many nights, and only drank 2 cups of coffee total. Well, there you go. And again, thank you for your service, Fred Nort. So I look at, when he was talking about redemption and somebody coming back into society, and again, I don't know when he's going to come back into society. By the time, I would imagine, this sentence comes around, he'll be at least 55 or 56 by the time he starts his prison sentence. So then that puts you in your mid 60s at the earliest that you could get out. And I think with all of these counts, I just can't imagine that it would be less than a year per offense. I see him getting much more than 10 years. And I think when he's talking about the thing about the second chances, I get that. I think that's for somebody who maybe, had gone into jail, had been caught selling drugs or something like that, and they want to come out and they want to be able to have a job and a family and, get right with God, as I like to say, and get back in there and have a second chance at redeeming themselves at life. This is a whole different situation. And I'm curious, can you listen to, I haven't listened to his music since I started hearing these accusations for years. I would not spend money to download a song. I would not buy do people listen to CDs anymore? Anyways, if that's a thing, I wouldn't buy a CD. I do all mine through Apple Music. But I wouldn't download any of his things. I wouldn't click on anything. I wouldn't go to a video, because in my mind, I can't separate him from his music. I can't. That's just my personal thoughts. So I think it'll be interesting. And then my question is, does anybody know, and I wish JP, I wish I could ping him for this question. I'm wondering why is the sentencing phase, why is it not until May of 2022? Can they not get that done before the end of the year? Can they not get that done right after the first of the year? Is that a scheduling thing? Is it just so backed up, the court system? Anyways, lots of questions on that. Let's see. Oh, and then, okay, well, and this is going to be a good transition, because I'm going to read your question about border control. She said, can someone explain to me why Border Patrol is being terminated for actually doing their job, but military are receiving dishonorary discharge for refusing an experimental, thank you, say that 10 times fast, injection, but the idiots who create the fiasco in Afghanistan are still employed. The head of the Joint Chiefs committed treason and is still employed. And those are questions that I think a lot of Americans have. I want to read this particular article because this really, really spoke to me. Let me switch over to this tab real quick. This is going to take a second to pull up. Take a sip of my green tea. Oh, doggone it. I just pulled up the same article. Hold on a second, guys. Here we go. This article really spoke to me because lots of us, especially here in the state of Texas, for one thing, Biden, get down to the doggone border in Texas. I am imploring you. I am begging you. I have heard, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong on this, that Biden, his entire time, and he is a lifelong career politician. It is what it is. That's how he's made his money. That's how he supported his family, and then some. Has never been down to the border. If I am wrong, I will stand corrected and I will correct myself on our next show. But to my knowledge and what I've done, the digging I've done, he has not been to the border. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, well, he was a representative, a senator from another state that isn't anywhere near Texas. I get it. Maybe. I really don't, because I feel like if there's ever a crisis anywhere and you're somebody who is voting, heck, when I was a county commissioner, and when you're a county commissioner, I was a Collin County commissioner. My precinct was precinct 4. You had certain areas. So I had, the part of Plano that was already developed out. I had a part of North Dallas that was already developed. Concrete roads are already there, street lights, things like that. But I remember issues coming up where they were talking about pouring asphalt on gravel roads in a rural part of the county. It wasn't the part of the county that I represented or that voted on to choose me to represent them. It was another part of the county. But because I was one of the 5 people on Commissioner's Court who was casting a vote on that had to do with people who lived in the county that I represented, had to do with their taxpayer dollars, I went out and I got in trucks from, the department who was overseeing that, and their experts, the experts in Collin County on that, took me out there, showed it to me, talked to me about it. I talked to people who had kids who caught school buses and, their concerns with either doing asphalt on a road or not. My point in saying that is, if you're a part of a governing body and you are making decisions that are life-altering, potentially life-altering to those citizens who you represent, you need to get out there and look at that. And then I think, okay, well, if he never went and visited the border when he was, a senator, then he was vice president for 8 years. And during the Obama administration, which ironically, you had Obama pushing to build a wall, you had Nancy Pelosi giving everybody, all her minions, a thumbs up to support money for a wall and for securing the southern border, especially the portion that's in Texas. Why didn't he go walk boots on the ground during any of that time? Fly Air Force 2 out here as vice president and walk and see what's going on. And now as president, Kamala Harris, I think she went somewhere close-ish, and I'm using air quotes, kind of close-ish to the border. And I'm baffled. I'm just absolutely baffled by the lack of attention to what truly is. Now, they've said before, oh, there's a humanitarian crisis, blah, 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 when Trump was in office. But now it's not a humanitarian crisis when we have so many people's lives being impacted. So this spoke to me because the Del Rio residents, they're the ones I'm like, okay, if I'm going to listen to somebody, I want to hear from them, because they're the ones who are working, raising a family, living. This is their reality. So here's what they had to say, and this came out about 3 hours ago. Del Rio residents respond to viral Border Patrol images taken near their community. Locals, and again, I'm really going to give them more credibility than anybody else, because this is their life. This is their backyard. Locals in Del Rio, Texas, who spoke with Fox News, overwhelmingly supported Border Patrol, despite recent viral images from their community that sparked criticism and an internal investigation. Here's what one resident said, longtime resident. It brought tears to my eyes. These men are giving their lives, leaving their families to come here and secure us. I'm personally very thankful. That resident's wife added, "We've been here for 54 years. I've watched when there was a multitude of people coming, their kindness to them. They're not bad people. They're wonderful people." Images of Border Patrol agents on horseback catching Haitian migrants in Del Rio recently went viral. The agents were falsely accused of whipping the migrants. "We back them completely," the woman said. We say don't lie about them. Please don't lie about them." This is another woman who lives in Del Rio. Diane, who lives right on the border, told Fox News, "The Border Patrol are phenomenal." In response to the photos, President Biden said it was horrible, and these are quotes from him, "horrible, outrageous, and these people would pay." Horse patrols were temporarily suspended while the Department of Homeland Security investigates the incident. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked Monday whether new information released contrasting the narrative that migrants were whipped changed anything. She replied, "I don't think anyone could look at those photos and think that was an appropriate action." I'm about to talk about my thoughts on this in just a second and would love to know the crew's thoughts as well. I've got our social media up and running. At first I thought, oh my gosh, and oh my God, what are they doing? One resident told Fox News. Actually, when I saw the whole video, it wasn't intentional. They were just doing their job. Another resident said, "They're doing their best," and that's a direct quote. In contrast, one man told Fox the pictures seemed inhumane and said it seemed as if Border Patrol agents were chasing people like sheep. That was the only negative comment. But Jose Carlos, a local business owner, told Fox, "What they're doing is putting just images, and when you see the video, they're trying to get the people not to cross back anymore. They have a very hard job to do," Carlos, who has friends and family in the Border Patrol, said. I think they need to get a little bit more credit for what they do." And I agree with the folks who live in Del Rio who are backing Border Patrol. I'll go on the record, I 110% agree with them. I'm not there. I haven't been boots on the ground. I'm also not the president or the vice president of the United States. I'm not a congressman or United States senator who needs to get down there and see what is truly going on before you make these horrid accusations about, oh, we're going back to the time of slavery and things of this nature. One of the things I did research into, and I apologize, I don't know, I think it's one of the reins. I don't know the exact term for what they use, but okay, and even if you're not somebody who's ridden horses or who has been around horses, you know that these are beautiful, majestic creatures of God. They're amazing. These people who are on these horses, first of all, a horse, even a well-trained horse like these are, I mean, these animals are amazing. They spook. If you go up to them, there's a possibility if you go up and you're not the one riding them and controlling that horse, as a trained person who knows what they're doing, you could go up, you could get kicked with a rear leg, you could get nudged, the horse could get confused or disoriented, and the horse could roll, hurting the person on the horse, hurting the horse itself, hurting anybody near that horse if it were to drop and roll because it's disoriented because of too many people getting around it. So what these Border Patrolmen are doing is they're taking this little kind of leather strip thing and they're doing these circle things, and what that's to do is to create. Oh, here we go, liberals. I'm going to use one of your words against you right now. I guess it's maybe against you. I'm going to use the word safe space right now. Basically, they're creating a safe space, a barrier, so the horse doesn't have people around it who the horse could accidentally hurt, or the horse, like I said, could get disoriented. If you've got too many people coming at these horses, the horse can get disoriented, and then all of a sudden you've got a potential tragedy for the horse and the person on the horse and anybody in that vicinity who were to be involved in an accident like that. So I think it is so irresponsible, and I get it. I know R's and D's, I know we like to throw little jabs. Heck, I just did with the word safe space. It is what it is. Okay, but when you use terminology recklessly and you say that these Border Patrol agents are out there and they are, you know, beating people and whipping people like the days of slaves, you're bringing so many negative things up, and first of all, it's a misrepresentation. That is not what these people are doing. They are trying to create a safe amount of distance so there is not some kind of a tragic accident. And I don't know how you do that with 10,000 people. I think of I think of concerts that I've gone to over the years, and back in the day, like when mosh pits were a thing. And I think of like, gosh, how that must have been so hard to be like the police officers working those concerts, or the folks, the security detail, because I mean, you know, you've got all these drunk people and everybody's like, you know, body surfing and whatnot, and I think of what a potential disaster and just an accident waiting to happen is there. Of course, I didn't think that was when I was in my 20s or 30s. As somebody in their 50s, I think about that all the time now. But with all of these people around these horses, and you can't go in there with a you know, patrol car. Horses are the only way to get around a situation like that. So I just think of how irresponsible it is to report something that's false. I mean, you know, these people, again, these are people who, when the rest of us are at home drinking a cup of coffee, hanging out, griping on social media, these people are putting their life and limb at risk. They just are. It's just like our first responders. It's like our men and women in blue, and it's like our firefighters, our EMTs, all those folks who, whenever there is trouble, they are there. We're back in our air-conditioned home griping on social media. So God bless these Border Patrol folks on these horses. And, you know, I just, you know, one of the prayers that myself and some friends of mine have been praying on a regular basis is we're praying for those specific people, because I can't even imagine what kind of conditions they're working in, how hard this must be. So good for Fox News for going and sending people out to talk to the actual citizens who live, work, raise their family, have raised their family there, have retired there, whatever the case may be, own businesses there. Good for them for trying to get the truth out. And I'll tell you, there's a social media post going around, and it shows some of these Border Patrol agents on these unbelievably beautiful horses. And I think that it is... you know, the picture is just awe-inspiring, and I God bless these people. I think they're doing a fantastic job. The citizens of Del Rio have spoken, and overwhelmingly they're saying, "Hey, thank you. We appreciate you." You know, are we ever going to get back to a place? Who was it, like Walter Cronkite? You know, who you knew if he said something, you know, on the 6 o'clock news or 10 o'clock news or 7 a.m. news, whatever time, there were people who you knew you could take what they said. These were true reporters, journalists. If you're just out there saying what your opinion is, or trying to push a headline, and especially one that has to do with real human beings, if you're trying to push an agenda as somebody who calls yourself a reporter or a journalist, shame on you. Because then at the end of the day, you're just entertainment, like JP and I are. You know, we try to get factual things out there, but a lot of times JP and I are just giving you our opinion, but we tell you that. We're like, this is my opinion. You know, we'd love to know yours. So, my goodness, when human lives are involved, let's try to get it right. And I'm saying this to our current administration. Let's try to get this right. Well, okay, I know time. Brett's looking at me like the music's about to start playing, Kathy. I know I'm on my soapbox, but it is what it is. State Fair of Texas is still open, so get out there and enjoy the State Fair. We love all the pictures that the crew are sending to us from their visits to the State Fair of Texas. Looks like everybody's having a great time. I still need to talk to somebody who's tried I think it's like gumbo balls or something. Brett, do you remember what those were called? It's the one that won 2 awards. After my Fletcher's Corny Dog. That's what I'm going for next. But I haven't heard from anybody about the food and about that food in particular, because that sounds like that's one of the hot items out there. And also, we're looking for what is the butter sculpture this year. Somebody from the crew, please tell us what the butter sculpture is. All right, y'all have a blessed day. Love y'all. Praying for everybody's health and safety. Lisa, who is a co-host with me of Heart and Soul of Texas Women, has pneumonia. Was at the hospital yesterday for an IV, so please pray for her. She really would appreciate your prayers. Y'all have a wonderful day. On Friday, we have Mallory Fuller, who is our current Miss Texas, in studio. We also have dear friends of the crew, Brandy Brayley and Faye Curtis, coming in. October 1st, we're kicking off Breast Cancer Awareness, and these ladies are going to talk to you about your health and also about how to get involved with some of the fun fundraisers that they are doing to raise money for women who are suffering from breast cancer. So anyways, y'all have a great day. Love y'all. We will see y'all soon tomorrow. Stay tuned for the Lawyer Show, and then we'll be back on again Friday morning. Like I said, big show. And then This Pink Cloud, they've got a really, really good organization about people who go into rehab or facilities to overcome an addiction. Who takes care of their dogs? So we're going to be talking about that on Friday with Kelly Reverb and This Pink Cloud. And then Saturday morning, Kilroy's Conversation. Great show there. Come and take it. That's a little hint. And then again, we start with Dr. Be Good on Sunday morning at 8. Y'all have a blessed one. See you soon. Bye-bye.